Good evening, dear guests, dear audience, appreciated friends of Opera Aperta here in Venice. On behalf of Wiener Zeitung, I have the great honor and pleasure to welcome you to the initial event of Opera Aperta 2. And as we promised last year, we will be back, and we are back. First of all, I want to thank Michaela from the European Cultural Center for allowing us to be your guest again. This year we have a topic that's called Transforming the City. Between the European Cultural Center, the University of Applied Arts, the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, and Wiener Zeitung, Austria's media house. So what is our motivation? What is the motivation that we came back here? The motivation is that the global population will increase in the next 20 to 25 years, about 70%, that people will live in cities. Considering these developments and the fields of artificial intelligence, keyword ChatGPT, we are facing a tipping point. Really, we are facing a tipping point, and the world will be very, very soon a different one as we are used to be. And what is our vision? We were discussing a lot. What could be the vision? Our vision is to make a contribution to enable a good life for everybody by combining the natural sciences and the arts. Transforming the city deals with further developments, design, and definition of fundamental issues of cities of the future. How will we make it happen? How will we make it happen is the question. Opera Aperta will be split up in 3 different editions. The first today is accessibility. In September we will have climbability, and the last one in November will be usability. But first of all, as we are used to have, we're going to make an artistic intervention, a live act, with the goal of creating a unique crystallization point in getting closer to the topic. Created and performed by Ruth Matthäus Berr from the University of Applied Arts. Ruth is an artist, a scientist, a teacher, and an overall classical humanist. We would say a Renaissance woman of today. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. This is a relator. The design is called critical design. Critical design, as in art history, in design history, we have styles. Critical design is one of the styles. The objective of this object is to make us aware that elderly people, people with dementia, for example, have the right for fun and for craziness, be part in our society. And now, look at the grips. Remember, forehand, backhand. And now we want to have action. This is performed by Alexandra Rus and Michaela Skjal. Thank you. I've got one more.
Thank you very much. It was really a pleasure watching you. I would never be able to do this. At this point, I want to hand over to the moderator of the evening, the one and only and well-known Georg Ruseger, Giorgio, from the Academy of Fine Arts, Vienna. Georg is in charge for the Knowledge Transfer Center of the Austrian universities. That is a platform to promote vivid and transdisciplinary exchange between science, business, and society. He is an internationally respected expert and manager, and he is, like last year, also the artistic curator of Opera Aperta. His lifelong motto is, nothing is impossible. Dear guests, my dear friends, dear guys from the Technics, thank you very much. I wish you an interesting evening, more or less exciting, and as the Buddhists would say, may the exercise succeed.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Thank you for this glorious introduction. Hello, everybody, and welcome back in Venice for our second round concerning this quite serious topic of transforming the cities. But as you have seen, it's not always that serious, if it's always a perspective thing. And I'm very happy that we can discuss tonight this topic a little bit in depth with my three dear guests, which I will introduce now briefly. Some balls are still going around in the room. This is the game is not over. And I will start with Eva Sommerecker. Eva Sommerecker is an architect and researcher focusing on bodies and digital space. She works as a senior scientist at the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna, my colleague, and as a senior researcher at the Art Academy in Latvia. She's also co-founder of the architecture studio iTry. Next to her, Niloufar Reuss is an architect from Vienna, Austria. With her company Reuss Architects, she has competences in design, renovation, and construction. Niloufar is also a guest lecturer at the University of Applied Arts Vienna and at the Technical University Vienna. And last but not least, Ruth Matthäus Beer, one of the initiators of Opera Aperta with us together. We have seen also a fabulous performance and a fabulous design piece, so to say. We will talk about that later. Is, so to say, artist, scientist, and social designer. She's professor and head of the Center for Didactics in Art and Interdisciplinary Education at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. Her focus is on artistic research, design research, and education, well-being in the field of health. Welcome. So, we met in the morning, as we do always, and we had some kind of workshop to talk about what could this transforming the city mean to artistic researchers in combination with architects, in combination with the future challenges we are facing, and also being aware of that cities are still the hubs of what development, design, and delineation means at the moment. And we are facing the fact that this will change. We don't know how and why, we didn't figure out that, but what we want to discuss in the beginning is how this kind of rollator is a symbol, a kind of icon for what is in front of us. It means maybe an overaged society, it means accessibility in terms of digital or analog tools, but it also means who is able or disabled to enter the city and under what conditions. So my first question to you would be, could you explain a little bit more what is your personal, from your professional background and expertise, view on this kind of rollator thing, what we have seen right now, and this kind of design object which have been crazily and playfulness transformed? Eva, can you start?
I think this intervention of the rollator points out very well that we need to have a discussion of accessibility, not just on a functional level. So let's say a functional level would be a rights-based approach. And if we look at this rights-based approach, of course, there is the so-called ADA Act, Americans with Disabilities Act from 1990, that was really radical at the time, very important because it made a shift from looking at disabilities not as something that was associated with a defunct body, but it sort of made this paradigm shift to associate this dysfunctness with space. And still, this was in the 1990s. Nowadays, we have a bit of a different discussion that's more justice-based. Because, there's this justice disability movement around people like Mia Mingus, who started to point out that this rights-based approach is very much focused on the independence of an individual, whereas a justice-based approach would focus more on an interdependence instead of this independence of individuals within a community. So that in the end, the questions that we start to ask is what kind of communities, what kind of cities do we want to build all together, and somehow to reconceptualize a space that's fit for all.
So interdependencies is what I hear, and also what kind of norms. So maybe Niloufar, you will give us a little bit insight on what's your viewpoint on the relator approach. Let's call it like that.
I would like to pick up on the word of interdependency and community. In architecture, we approach, at the time being, we approach accessibility with a lot of norms and regulations, which are very strict all across the country and Europe too. Considering the fact that we are also now approaching a new time age of climate change and ecological issues, we are now learning as architects, or emphasizing as architects, to reuse materials and rebuild within the existing structure. So this is where this interdependency comes in now, because with all the rules and regulations, you can apply them when you build a new structure or new city areas. But if you want to stay within the built structure of an, for example, old city, and you want to diminish the deconstruction, then you will not be able to implement all the norms and regulations that we have now. So, for example, I have built a lot of doctors' practices, and doctors' practices require, of course, accessibility. And if you implement a doctor's practice in existing structure, you cannot not always make these regulations. You have to work around these regulations, and so this is where the interdependency works together. The community works together and finds a solution how we can all together in various fields can make the accessibility work within the existing structure, for example. That's my approach on the rollator, because the rollator is the physical the physical sign of me having to be able to get to somewhere. And if I can't do that with a rollator or with a wheelchair, then we need to have these structures implemented. And if it doesn't work within the already built surroundings, then we will have to have people working together and making it happen to find solutions how this could work. For example, giving service to accessibility, working together. Yes.
So you may give us now some insight on your critical design approach, which you are kind of designed with the rollator, and what's the background and the shift within this kind of delineation or exercise process. Tell us a little bit more where this comes from.
Well, the background is that actually elderly people need such kind of helpful objects, useful objects. And we figured out in interviews with people with dementia that they don't feel touched by them because they think like they look very ugly and very simple. And the problem, for example, for people with dementia is that they know that something is wrong with them and they draw back from society. They feel embarrassed, so they stay at home. They don't want to go out. And actually, they become very lonely. We all know loneliness from the time of lockdowns at COVID-19, and we all know how difficult it is. And now you must imagine it's double complicated with people with dementia. And of course, the critical design has kind of two parts. On the first part, I would like to argue that one of the people with early dementia told us that she wants to be crazy and want to have a crazy design and an individual design which she likes. And the other part is this interactive part. This is, of course, it doesn't have to work. It's just actually to have fun and to interact. And of course, some things could be added to rollators in real, because why not changing the grips of a rollator and having an individual haptical reminder of forehand and backhand and former times playing tennis. And you play tennis as well. So many people have different hobbies, and you could adapt the objects to individual desires or needs. And also to overcome loneliness, because all of them that we are designing, or most of them, are interactive, and some of them are quotations of design. Like in the background, we see the Sacco von Zanotti, a quotation from us. We do it together with Pia Schaller, and I think this is kind of the meaning, to have universal design and design for all, that we all have the right of accessibility for the city and be member of the society in the city if we are getting older.
Thank you very much for this first round of introduction and giving a little bit of glimpse what is going on and what is the viewpoint. I mean, starting with the rollator brings us very much to the street level of what maybe the city development can mean in the future, because we see, especially if you go at the biennial at the moment or to the Time Space Existent exhibition, you see showcasing of beautiful buildings of the future. Everything is very green, it's very inclusive, but it's also very new. So I think maybe from this point of view of the artistic intervention, or also like dealing with the quick fix, means that we are coming over this urgent problems and these urgencies of change. Maybe we have to apply some quick fixes to come forward, but we should not forget about to just go on after the quick fix, so the quick fix doesn't stay. And I think now this would be the second round, but I want to ask you a little bit more about how do you believe this perspective shift of drawing attention to things like which are really happening on the street level, which means including a lot of people, including not only the ones who can afford it or the ones who can easily walk because they are able. So what is about the challenges of the everyday life, especially in a city like Venice, but I don't want to narrow it down only to Venice, because I think accessibility in terms of cities will be a very hot topic in the future. I mean, not only because of the hot city, also because of that cities are becoming a battle space where you have to invest a lot of money, or you have to invest a lot of cognitive power. So my question would be, whether you see this artistic and creative role, and as well the role as a designer and architect, to really influence this development of how cities will look like in the future. Who wants? It's not, we don't go to...
If I may, I can start. Yeah. We have been doing a research workshop at the Royal Institute of Architecture in London, and our project is an artistic research project funded by the Austrian Science Fund. And we learned there at the Royal Institute of Architecture that actually we need to design and adapt the cities to universal design. Design for all means that everybody feels welcome in the city. So it's not especially designed for people with special needs or for children or for elderly people, but everybody feels happy in this city. So this is a kind of a challenge, and also a challenge regarding the aesthetics. So especially we figured out that actually the Royal Institute of Architecture has a very cool design, cool architecture, but if we would adapt it for universal design or design for all, we would have also to change our maybe individualized architectural ideas of what we want to design for ourselves. And we would need to adapt it for everybody.
Could I continue on this point? Because I want to pick up on what you said, that this accessibility, the measures that have been taking place to make cities or pathways or buildings more accessible are usually, if we look around, as you already said, a quick fix. And it looks like it's just ready-made, put there in order to fix the problem, but it shouldn't be a quick fix. It should be. It won't go away. We will work on it, and it will even get better, and it will develop this accessibility. So it shouldn't just be a ramp that we put there. Put together, you walk over it. It's kind of you can hear it's hollow. Yeah, you can hear it's a temporary structure, but then the people realize that this temporary structure is not temporary, because it will stay, because it has for a good reason. So what we should think about is how to implement design to make it to make it fit into the urban design, to make it not look like it's just put there and expected to be carried away after a few weeks. It should be something that it can look. Of course, this is a design question, how it looks, what the style is, if it's in a contrast to the existing structure, or if it's kind of fit in with the existing structure where you think, oh, this has always been there. That's a design issue, you can discuss that. But it should be something considered permanent, a permanent solution, and not a quick fix, which has the feeling of being temporary. That's not fair to the people, I think, yeah.
I guess we also need to reconsider what's called good design. And what comes into my mind is an example that I recently encountered in a new book published by a guest professor at the Academy of Fine Arts, David Gissen. He recently published a book called The Architecture of Disability. And basically it's trying to reinterpret architecture history, but then also the built environment through the lens of disability. And one of the examples that he brings is the path that leads up to the Acropolis in Athens. And this path was designed in the middle of the 20th century, and in architectural discourse, this is a very well-received architectural intervention. It's a meandering path that opens up several vistas, and then, people actually need to climb it up, a very steep part at the end until you reach the top, and then you're there at the Acropolis. And David Gissen then reminded us that maybe we also need to reconsult architectural history and bring forward facts that maybe became not so well known. And then he reminded us that actually the Acropolis, when it was originally built like 500 before Christ, there was a ramp leading up to the top of the mountain. And then, also pregnant women or the elderly people, veterans, they could all go there. It was an enormous structure that was then only destroyed through Roman occupation. And then what I wanted to say is that when we start to work with existing structures, we could also reconsider different paths that maybe work better for in order to include a design that fits all, like this universal design that Ruth pointed out.
I mean, speaking of ramps, for example, we see ramps as the main choice of accessibility. But they don't, for example, may we take as an example the city of Venice? You have all these bridges, and then you have the ramps built on the seaside, which are where there's a lot of space where you can actually build a ramp. But as soon as the space gets tight in a city, because cities are compact, and cities are not going to get less compact, because we need to use. I mean, people. It will fill up. Cities will fill up. They will go vertical, and the space will be. There won't be more space available to build huge ramps. So we have to also consider how we can use either curling them up, or how we can use different methods, machines, elevating devices that can function in addition with what we've got already, so that the available space for implementing accessibility in terms of architectural solutions is also limited. Yeah.
So we can say that they are kind of the concept of the ready-mades, just leave it, because in Venice it was built for the marathon.
Yeah.
So there are, in some big areas we have these ramps, and in other areas we don't. So if I would need a rollator, I would not be able to access the steps, or also women or men with children, little children, they also have a problem to come across and to carry the object back and forth to these bridges. So the question would be, if I cannot access it, I would stay at home. And then I would be excluded of society. And I would sit lonely at home, and I will not be able to have contact with the people. So ready-made, also critical design could be criticized by being kind of a ready-made. But it has a different meaning, because the critical design says, I don't have to function. I just want to show off that there is something to be discussed. And the ready-made here that remained from the marathon could be discussed if this has to stay or if this has to be changed, right?
In a way, it's also funny that marathon, coming from the Greeks, is bringing the ramp to the Romans, but the Romans taking away the ramp, the Acropolis. So in a way, but shows in a way as well that history maybe is not just a leading figure in development, so by the book. So maybe also to revisit some design approaches which might have been eliminated, or which might have been reused or unused in a way, because the trend or the laws of design said at the moment perspective is more important than accessibility. But what I hear in this round, when you are talking about the city, it's quite a lot of questions about mobility, and it seems that mobility and city and urban life is so much connected, and it seems that we are becoming a really big problem with that. I mean, especially if you look into this quantities of people going through the streets. I mean, this is like in Venice very obvious that all these kind of things maybe cannot hold longer. And you said when you are not mobile anymore, then you are maybe in a way excluded. If you look on the streets in Venice today, everybody is walking through the streets with the mobile to kind of get guided through that. So we have also the discussion of digitalization and the discussion of, so to say, digital twins. What will happen if we kind of create another world or a hybrid world where these kind of things could interrelate to each other? And I think this would be the next question as well. What do you see in the transformation of cities and also in the transformation of society within our digital paradigm as a chance to maybe enrich and not lose the real space and mobility, so somehow find a solution how these things can co-create something new?
I think the future might be that we use virtual reality to travel, because there are some examples from Asia where people are not allowed to enter temples anymore because of the transpiration, and then the paintings get distorted. And so people can visit cities like Venice, maybe in the future time, by virtual reality. And this leads me to the idea that actually the inhabitants of Venice could reclaim the city, and then we have to discuss how the city has to be built or rebuilt when it is reclaimed by the people or inhabitants of Italy and Venice, what they wish to live here without tourists and just visiting tourists via social media or virtual reality.
Yeah, we are. In architecture, we in the design process of architecture or city planning, we do use three-dimensional models, and also the walkthrough a three-dimensional model is quite common. What we offer the client. I think the connection here with people using it and us transforming and shaping the city would be that we create these virtual rooms, virtual spaces, virtual city areas, houses, and with new models of accessibility and try them out. I mean, accessibility is, of course, physical, but it can also be accessibility to information like bureaucracy, which can be done virtually, which makes people not having to move around, so it opens up space for other purposes in the city. And with this a prototype of a three-dimensional space, you can see if something works or not. And I think you had a very interesting point on that as well.
Yeah, I actually was thinking that one should leave this sort of very strict division between what's physical space and then what's digital space, because they're so closely intertwined already. Anyways, it's impossible to separate them. And what I would like to maybe also remind architects is that we are not just in charge of physical space, we're actually also in charge of digital space. Because maybe we need to, as architects, we need to remind ourselves that social media and like the digital realms we occupy on an everyday basis, they are space. So architects are responsible for them. And probably it could be, like there could be ways that one could incorporate these mixed reality models that exist already anyways from the design phase, that they start to merge into the city, that they become used on an everyday basis, and like through the occupation of a so-called model, one starts to then better interact with the city. And then through this one could start to redesign and transform the city itself.
I think this keyword like redesigning, I mean, we're talking here a lot about universal design. This is what I want to point out, which is universal for access for all, as it's also been called in the free internet movement of Amsterdam in the early 90s. So this access for all is a very typical thing for the development of something new, because everybody can contribute. And if I get you right, this is a co-design process where people should be included. So we talked a little bit about elderly people who have more or less the problem that they cannot access so easily to the digital area. But what do you think about the younger people who are so digital native that they are maybe immersed already in this digital reality? And I'm not so sure if I look at the younger people on the street, if they are more on the mobile or on the street, or maybe half-half. I guess it's 70-30. So what is your also from a teacher's perspective and an educational perspective, how could this kind of design approach be entered into something like an understanding of that this would be very important to create this hybrid reality, and as well create some inclusiveness within that moment in a way of co-design and opening up or accessibility of information, technology and stuff like that? And for sure, I don't mean only in Central Europe.
I think especially at art universities and also in schools, we need to integrate inclusion into our curricula. It is not included yet, so especially in Austria. And I think we have to look at other countries which are far in front of us, like Japan, for example, which knows that there are a lot of elderly people and they are thinking now, what can we do that they feel comfortable and have a well-being? And another thing which is very important, that now companies make big new buildings, architects plan exciting new futuristic homes, but what they forget is that we all need, regarding to our memory, some kind of landscape part of our memory. For example, in Austria, we have a very famous bakery, and when this bakery closed down, at least they left a pretzel to get into this place, and it became a coffee house. But still, people who have been living there, they not know when we touch and we see, there was this bakery, this famous bakery, and in my childhood I've been here. And if we extinguish all the past, the question would be, what will be remembered, and how we will be able to orientate ourselves when we get older, because also the young generation now, the young architects, they're getting older, and they should not forget that they also will need special things of remembrances and memories. Maybe they will be different than for our generation, I don't know. For sure they will be different, but still some things will remain.
I think this is also a very good bridge to the rollato, the walker that we had to that topic, because as you said, we need these anchor points, we need memories, and the city should not be. We should work with what is there, as I said already after the first question, that we try to preserve the structure and implement new architecture, new forms, and these anchor points should be haptic and visual. That means this virtual reality and the physical world has to work together. We need to find a way how we can get the best out of the virtual reality to play through methods, to play through prototypes, to have people also judging on it. They need, their voices want to be heard. People want to be respected. They want to be part of the changes of city and society. And if we manage to create a digital world which plays through different scenarios and they can be heard, and some artificial intelligence will then put out the statistics and tell us as humans how we can deal with this information, how we can proceed, then we can maybe manage to make the city accessible for everyone in the best possible way. A co-designing process, you said, as a keyword as well, and this hybrid realities is something which we have to deal with and learn how to do it. I think you.
Yeah, I agree.
Navigation
will be key. How to navigate the city, and orientation is a big part in that. Like as you were pointing out already, anyways, that it's about specific landmarks and visual clues that help us getting along. And maybe the future lies in combining the realities of the digital with the physical in order to create these landmarks and to make us move through in a meaningful way, interacting with the others, not as an atomized sole human being, but somehow interrelating and
independence.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we still function as a community, and we see each other and we can touch each other, but whatever is necessary to be done, we can do in a shorter way, maybe in a digital way, and give space to social interactions and give space to the people who want to be heard and want to be part of the society.
Yes, and I'm not sure if we will need interdisciplinary collaboration groups. Maybe we will not reach that far, but multidisciplinary already could be planned for planning and transforming the city, so that multidisciplinary teams take a view on multisensory characteristics for people. because it's also the sound of a space. It's the kinesthetic memory of how do I move in this space, which I was used to. It is the touch. How did it feel like when I opened the door there? And also, of course, the visual memory. And so it should be something like a merge of and a collaboration of different people, expertises and senses, I guess.
Yeah, because as we discussed earlier, accessibility is not only for people who cannot walk, it's also for all senses, for hearing, for seeing, and also, as we also said before, smelling. I mean, smelling the city. Venice smells so beautifully at the moment because of all these flowers, and this is just some beauty which we all can. If we all can enjoy if we make space for it and make other things more efficient with digital.
But now I'm getting curious because I wanted to avoid this discussion about artificial intelligence and how the machine learning process can actually preserve as well these kind of dimensions you just mentioned. It's like historical facts, like things what happening connected to emotions and desires, not so much in problem solving, more like in kind of enriching or kind of creating for humans, so to say, a better way to not forget about that. And I think here, this makes me totally curious now to hear your opinion, whether you see the tipping point. We see on the one hand, everything is very much advertisement based or driven, and it's basically about making money. But now we are coming into a total different dimension to enrich the city environment or to kind of combine the city environment with something like a digital brain, which can, so to say, save and suggest or at least preserve something which is maybe not there anymore when we are talking about digital heritage or digital twins in this sense, which are not kind of copying the thing, which are copying the experience or which are copying something like what we also could call universal design, something which is connectable to others so they can improve or try it out. What would you see in this kind of fantasy then the tipping point in a transforming city in the future? Would it be this dystopian thing that machines are taking over everything and humans are just kind of controlled by their algorithms? Or would that be an opinion or a possibility also to bring creativity and design into this kind of new world, what we are talking about every day at the moment?
Well, regarding digital humanism, I would say that the virtual reality should be only used for testing, for multidisciplinary participants, which are, or actually everybody who is involved in a space. And maybe virtual reality should be used to visit spaces which are in danger because of too much tourism. And I think we should develop landmarks which can be visited with special experiences. I was thinking now, for example, what would be interesting, you listen to steps, and how difficult it is to go the steps up and down in Venice. So you hear a little bit the respiration of the people, like inhale, exhale, so kind of challenged. And then you also hear the sound of the gondola water, yes, so you hear this. And then you have a little bit the smell of typical Venice smell, yes. So you could create such kind of multi-sensual spaces where people could visit, maybe with a small, real little Venice, where you can revive the situation and it should become something exceptional that you can visit just because you need, not too many people are there. So this could be, I think, an interesting form of dystopian future to how to visit very special places, also to conserve them and give them back to the inhabitants.
Any other kind of utopian or dystopian ideas how we can combine in this hybrid world this universal design approach and raise the awareness for inclusion, or the new European Bauhaus calls it like this better future of green, inclusive, everything is very aesthetic and beautiful. I mean, this is a very clean and nice vision. The question is how to go there and what kind of pathways do we have to decide on that we also can use this kind of digital movement, which is a huge one at the moment, not just for Venice, but to improve city life for the inhabitants and all of the different inhabitants, not just for the ones who can afford it or the ones who can access this because they have this newest phone or this newest interface.
Ways is a really good term that you just used because, thinking of accessibility is not a thing. Also, it's not an event. Also, it's not something that one institution or one individual can do for another one. It's more of a process. It's a practice that's needs to be constantly ongoing, and we need to decide for a way to go rather than to probably it will not be one solution that comes quickly.
I like the way you said accessibility is a practice, which brings us back to two questions before, where we said that we have to find a way, and we have to practice and prototype what works and what doesn't, and interdependence. We have to work together to make things possible within the existing structure. I think the digital, of course, has to work for us, which means we have to make this virtual reality world in a way accessible that it will shorten the ways we have to do, which are not necessary, so we can give space to the others to move around. So we don't have to necessarily jump into a car and drive somewhere to just get something done, which is a necessity. So we clear the streets in that way, more or less. So other people who want to really enjoy or want to be present in the real space have actually more enjoyment there, and it's cleaner. And then we're talking about climate and CO2 footprint and all these kind of things. These can be reduced with shortening necessary travel, for example. Yeah.
And to work together, because I think we have to overcome this egoism of this is our favorite shape. I want to design this like that. It's maybe dangerous that I say that because I'm not an architect, but also in design, I think we have to overcome this. This would be my perfect ideal design for living. I have to be conscious about how we can design it together, but in a participatory way. And we have to focus on the needs of the people and not on our preferences.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Totally. We have to hear the others, and we have to also research. We have to find out how people move around, or how the movement in space is taking place. How bodies move around in space. I think, Eva, you have you had quite interesting things to say before.
This is now. I think this would be too big of a question, but I guess that really it's the movement through the city. That's key, and this movement is not just it's not just something that can be mapped on a sort of Cartesian grid of X, Y, Z. It's also something that's experiential. It's lived space of people. I think this then also links back to the dementia research, because this is what we will remember in the end. Meaningful spaces that are created through through experiences and through interactions, meaningful interactions with touching surfaces, with visual perspectives, and so on.
And you used the term joyful, and then we had in the beginning, I want to now close a little bit the circuit here, playful and joyful. Sometimes I have the feeling if we are looking at the serious issues of what we are facing, especially in megacities, when we really have to make big decisions on climate, on mobility, on housing, so that this discussion leads here, and this is for me a very joyful way of thinking of the city like a maze, like having something like to apply to the city, to do something with the city, not so much about where are the restrictions. Using it like a hacker means as well to kind of see, to make a workaround. And I think the invitation, as far as I get it from you, is as well to include here not only the developers, and I mean there are like political developers, there are like enterprises, but there are also the users of the city, and these are, for example, tourists or inhabitants or children, and also to take these users into account, what this kind of user design would be in a general way. And maybe we can, in the last round, conclude how that, from your perspective, can as well work to give these groups and communities as well the voice, because as far as I'm concerned, normally the decision making is a very hard one. So basically there is someone who says, I will invest in that, so the thing is done. But how can we create as well these moments? And I think, isn't art and creativity, like in combination with that as a playful approach, a serious game to kind of give people the voice to co-create or to universal design with the others, because the others is always a very huge amount of people, which is not so easy to grasp who are all the people. So maybe you will give us some, from your personal and also from your practical wise and as expertise, some kind of statement how we can, from your perspective, come closer to the fact that we have to trans, inter, and cross-disciplinary move into that.
I mean, I think maybe we should, like good journalists, do it. We have to make a lot of research of the spaces, of the special spaces. And maybe we as artists, we have to focus on the people and leave ourselves a little bit out and really focus on what people need. Because, for example, in the history of design, we have been very often talking about author design. So that means that I knew what you need, or at least I look a little bit about the target group and then I know what to design for you. And still this is, in many schools, this is usual, and this empathic approach, what do people need, and to invite people at the very beginning, because this is also something very crucial. Very often we do like fake participatory strategies. We don't investigate in inviting people from the beginning to the new design of buildings or of quarters of the city or spaces of the city. And I think we should invite them from the beginning and ask them about the history and leave things of history there, because we know actually, do you remember, we constructed a lot of new things, but now it would be so cool to visit an original Werner Panton room, for example. I know there exists one, but we destroyed everything. We want to make everything new all the time. But why can't we also preserve things which are nice and take these things with us in the new design and involve the people from the beginning, because this is really participation.
And then what I loved about the intervention that you were showing in the beginning is that there is actually time and space given to experimentation. So there's a certain generosity in dealing with time and space and resources in order to be joyful. And to be experimental, and then also to have fun. So this creates a completely different reading of the rollator. That's usually, it's a stigmatized object, because it's usually associated with a defunct body. Whereas then through this intervention, one creates a different reading of this object, and I think this is what we need.
And we don't need to win.
Yes, process. Yeah, I think it's really beautiful what you said, that we need more time for experimentation and more, to be more generous with the time, so we can do more research. We can interact with the people to see what they want. We can give time to to this mentioned virtual reality where we try out things and then come to conclusions. We should also, I want to pick up on what you said, that we always think everything has to be new, which is, I agree with you, it doesn't have to be new. I mean, I think as human beings, we tend to want to invent everything or make everything better in a way that we erase what happened. It's a little bit of an ego thing, maybe, I don't know. And I think if we learn how to just take what someone else has developed and try to make it better, will lead us really a long way and give more time for trying things out in a playful way, to have people also engaged in the processes, and yeah, I mean the pace is so fast at the moment. Developments will happen so quickly and so fast. So we also need the digital medium to help us to reach the people, I think. Yeah.
And I like very much that you said, or you both were actually mentioning the time. A space existence is here a big topic in Venice, at the space we are. But maybe this happens naturally because we're having a work-life balance use now. And maybe this is the crucial point, because we will not be able to be so far as we have been. I mean, we might not have everything as we are having it today. Things will change because work-life balance means also having more time to develop, but also less service maybe. Yeah, so maybe this will happen naturally. I don't know. Could be.
I think this will happen with the AI, which will take over a lot of service or functions, will make many jobs obsolete, and this will create new space, hopefully, for creativity and interaction, and of course it will create new jobs in that way. Hopefully, that's a very hopeful vision.
And what I heard as well is like this engagement, and I always had this term change. We are so much in this kind of heavily change moment, but to be engaged in this change as well means that there is a chance to do something and to see it from a holistic way, not just in a very specific way like discourses are often going. And I have to thank the ECC again to make this happen for us, that we get this space, this time, and this existence to bring it all together, what's called, and to give us the chance here to reflect on things like accessibility, maybe in a very, I would say, different way of how it is actually used in digital technologies, really more on a human-centered, but in combination with these hybrid development of cities of the futures. And I want to thank you very much to my speakers, and thanks for everything you shared with us tonight, and I wish to everything on the net a good evening. Goodbye.